24 degrees Celsius here, a very cool morning in the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome to your daily dose of sunshine, Sunrise Daily. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo, marking it's 26 degrees here in Lagos, and the weatherman says it's still raining. Welcome to June 30. It's a Tuesday morning, last day in the first half of the year.
Indeed, Ayo, last day in the first half of the year, and a sad day, unfortunately, for African unity, especially in the land, shall I say, down under. Usually the land down under is referred to as Australia, but we do know that South Africa is at the very tip of the African continent down south. And today a lot of Africans are wondering whatever happened to the dream of the founding fathers who fought for African unity and the freedom of African countries. That question will continue to resound as a lot of South Africans take to the streets today to protest. We call it an anti-immigration protest now, but they're asking that non-documented migrants leave their country. It is the culmination of several protests that have now rocked the country, and the xenophobic uprising somewhat that has now, come up in South Africa. A lot of people are really wondering what exactly has now happened in our beloved, yes, because they are still beloved, South Africa, the land that gave us Nelson Mandela, the land that spoke of African unity, the land of the rainbow and colors, and, gave us Lucky Dube and all of these beautiful songs that all over Africa we love to sing. But we do know that we're keeping tabs on development in that country, especially as affects Nigerians. We understand that the Nigerian government has deployed a plane to bring back even more Nigerians who should be en route. We understand that over 1,000 Nigerians have indicated interest, and so far we've been able to bring back only a little above 300. But we understand that an Air Peace flight will be touching down in South Africa today to bring back home those who have expressed a desire to come home. But Ayo, this is certainly a very sad development that we're watching and keeping tabs on in South Africa.
What is even sadder is that it is not a mystery. It is something that everyone who is involved knows where it originated from. As you said, Pan-African ideologies have been with us for decades. But for those who didn't know, how South Africa got to where it is today, I don't know what exactly the history is. I was on a flight recently, Malfa, with South African, and we were just, she introduced herself, and she just said, "Look, don't judge me." Of course, I said, "Well, I'm not judging you." We got into a conversation. And she said only one thing: South Africans know what the root is. And it is just, political actors, according to information that is already out there. The question is, and a good number of people have also said, why is the South African government not saying anything? Why is the South African government seemingly silent? Just recently, and I think yesterday, the president said, look, you guys, we know you have a right to protest and all of that. He also said, okay, we also have a right to protect legal. He was talking about illegal migration. If it had to take the people to protest against illegal migration, it means that the relevant government agencies haven't been doing what they are saying that they're supposed to do. The president of South Africa also spoke to the complications from corruption making these things possible. The question is, what has been done about that over time? Particularly because this issue of xenophobia, which is now seemingly transiting into Afrophobia, has been on for a very, very long time. Question is, what is being done about it to put pay to it? People will always move around. People will always transit. People will always travel. Nigerians are in South Africa. A good number of them are coming back home. We understand that roughly 500,000 Nigerians, we have been told, are somewhere in South Africa. Whether that is true or not, I guess our authorities will be able to confirm that. Now, That is on the one hand. The Nigerian government also has been aware of this situation, and the issues have been on tethers for a very long time. We can acknowledge that Ms. Abike Dabiri had done a lot about this particular matter over time with the Diaspora Commission. The Foreign Affairs Minister has begun to say something now. It is time for the federal government of Nigeria to take a decisive position on this matter and say, enough embarrassment on Nigerians. Let the fact that you touch a Nigerian be something unthinkable. Let there be those actions that alienate anyone to say, look, when it comes to a Nigerian, keep off. Report them to the authorities and let Nigeria deal with its own problems. But for this to continue, and the Nigerian and the South African governments haven't really been able to make a decisive decision about this. I guess I'm just waiting, Malcolm, because we understand that the Foreign Affairs Minister has begun to say some things and they're working towards one action or the other. I'm waiting for what exactly is going to come from all of that. Let it not just be backs. Let's have some bites for once.
Clearly a job cut out for everyone, but particularly for the South African police today, as a lot of immigrants will be looking forward to them doing their job of keeping everyone safe and making sure that the protests continue to be peaceful. I mean, if they can manage that, given the number of people who are expected to show up. But we do believe, well, we're going to hold them accountable for this one, that at least the migrants who are still in their country should be kept safe, and that these protests do not become violent. That certainly will be that certainly should be, and we understand is a top priority for the South African government. Well, while we keep tabs on what is happening in that country, in South Africa, we also are keeping tabs on what is happening back home, because a lot of the things, I mean, as you said, highlighted, Ayo, a lot of the pressures which have now caused a lot of our citizens to look outside start from home. Unemployment is rife. It's a big issue that our government has on its hand, and we do know that only recently the comments of the First Lady talking about empowerment with Akara and Kuli Kuli did not sit right with quite a number of people, even though she was referring to a class of people who are vulnerable. I mean, people who are the very bottom rung of the ladder. Well, perhaps to counter that, or to say that, well, that was something else that she was talking about. Yesterday, we heard reports of reforms hitting one of the biggest youth organizations we have here in Nigeria. The National Youth Service Scheme is now up for reforms after how many years? 53 years of existence. Well, now, is it 53? Yes, in a 53-year history, it is now up for reforms. One of the biggest reforms is that it's now to be civilian-led. For years, the Director General of the organization has always come from the ranks of the military. So now we have been told that it's now going to be civilian-led. There's going to be safety and technological advancement as part of it. Safety, according to them, will continue to be a priority. They're also looking at a new 6-week orientation camp structure, which will have week 1 to 2 as a foundation, week 3 to 4 as a career prep, weeks 5 to 6 focusing on specialization. We heard the President's special advisor speaking on the matter yesterday and giving us a brief. The report will be taken very shortly. They are also going to be dividing them into core streams, focusing on different parts such as agriculture, medical core, education core, tech and digital core, legal core, public service core, infrastructure core, green core, enterprise core, paramilitary and security core, and as well as the creative economy core. So a lot of aspects to this new reform. And people are wondering, is this still going to retain a bit of the paramilitary training, which you know, we have had before now? One of the things that people look forward to, that well, I said that element of discipline and you know, firmness in the camp. It's unclear. I think we'll still wait for the nitty-gritty. We'll be looking forward to details in the coming days and even more reactions. But we do know that citizens have been reacting on their social media page. You can also let us know what you think. Do you think that this reform is long overdue? When you were thinking about it, was this the sort of reform that you were thinking of? But it's a discussion that we are going to be having here on Sunrise Daily about now, after we listen to this report.
Cabinet ministers and other members of the Federal Executive Council arriving for their meeting. Once the president is seated, the meeting commences. First is the swearing in of commissioners for the National Population Commission and the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission. And the meeting proper commences behind closed doors. The meeting concludes and 8 ministers are joined by the Special Advisor on Policy to outline the key resolutions of the meeting.
I'm happy to tell you that it has been approved for the reform of National Youth Service Corps.
What is important is Mr. President, in his usual bold and courageous way, has taken on this holistic reform of the NYSC, which has never been done in the last 53 years of its establishment. NYSC will be civilian-led with clarity of the fact that we need to build the skill set of our youth to enable them function and support the government in building a $1 trillion economy.
The presidential aide also made some clarifications.
We recognize that NYSC is spread across the whole country, and security is the core aspect of ensuring the safety of our core members. So the safety aspect of our core members still remains with the military, but the operational leadership of the NYSC will be civilian-led. But the security will continue to be anchored and implemented by the Nigerian military. We're not increasing the length of the NYSC itself. It still remains within the period. So what we're looking to do with the digital core is to provide our graduates with certifications that will enable them to be self-employed. So there are certain certifications that need to be done over a period of 3 months, some of them over a period of 6 months. So within that period, they will remain in training so that they are not posted for primary assignment if the training requires for them to be in the classroom or for them to join virtually.
The Minister of Finance also outlined some of the approvals received for different sectors.
How to bring the cost of transportation down. Some of these investments had already been made based on anticipatory approval by Mr. President, given the urgency of those interventions, and Council today approved. The next heading is to do with power. Under this heading, we had one memo where Council approved the credit facility from the Islamic Development Bank. So this is a $160 million facility for Niger State solar energy development projects. The Islamic Development Bank will provide $150 million, and the government of Niger State will provide the counterpart funding of $10 million.
The Federal Executive Council also considered some memos from the Ministry of Works and approved several strategic roads and infrastructure that is aimed at enhancing connectivity, safety, and the economy in several corridors and several states. Other memos from the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy were also approved. From the Federal Executive Council here at the State House, Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
Well, so that is the reporters gathered by our correspondent, Lanre Lasisi. We understand that the president has given directive that the special advisors, the Attorney General, as well as the Minister of Youth, work with the National Assembly to effect the changes that will be needed in the act so that the reforms can start immediately. But as it stands, the act is yet to be amended, so we'll still have a period within which to debate it, and I'm sure that the National Assembly will also have its own conversation on this particular matter. But we do know that the NYSC was formed or was started, institutionalized after the Civil War for young people who are leaving tertiary institutions to be able to get to know their country a bit better. So they were posted across the country to be able to, give some form of service to different parts of the country, other than that where they went to school or where they are from. Now, big questions remain as to whether that has now served its purpose. It's the conversation that we're having this morning. with Mr. Shola Adekonye, who is the co-founder of Open Innovation Access and GPOIA Green Ventures. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us on Sunrise Early this morning. I'm sure that you must have, I want to believe that you have fond memories of your time as a Youth Corps member. And I wonder whether, this reforms, news of these reforms have hit you well, and if you're optimistic that this is now the way to go, looking ahead of what we hope to become as a country.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me. I remember my time serving in NYSC in Enugu. I always wondered what the purpose was. What is the purpose? What is the end goal of all of this? So fast forward 2 years ago, we had under an MOU with the National Troop of Nigeria, we did a pilot program to introduce advanced technology to the NYSC, one of the NYSC camps, and we saw massive interest in the NYSC Corps members in learning more about technology and getting involved with it. So we always knew that this was the right way to go. It was just a matter of time. So I'm optimistic about this. I think regardless of the political agenda or the intent behind this, I think it's the right thing. It's historic. It's historic in the sense that it's not the leadership change. It now moves the focus from what it was many 53 years ago to current times. Times have changed. The needs of the country have changed. The future is waiting, and what needs to be done in the present needs to prepare young people for the future. No longer could that paramilitary agenda, serve the future. So this here is historic, and we believe this is the right thing to do. It also links this reform to the 1 trillion economy agenda, because now with this, we are able to turn the national, NYSC to the infrastructure for workforce development that can support that agenda. So no longer does that 1 trillion economy seem like wishful thinking. There's a concrete plan now behind that to make that happen. So this is the right thing to do. We believe that strongly. Of course, it comes with risk as well. There's execution risk. It's still going to pass through legislative and legal framework for it to get approved, for it to pass, and for it to actually even be ready to be executed. So that execution risk is there. We also see where there is also the funding risk. If the funding is not released, then all of this is just good on paper and it's not real. So the funding released to actually make it happen, to get that certification that was being talked about, to legitimize that and add some credence to that, then without that funding release, none of that can be achieved. So we always see this happening. We see that this is the right thing to do. Some of the risks that are also involved with this are risks such as, if this, at the end of the day, is not linked to employment, some sort of employer-linked feature to it, then it's still not going to achieve the purpose. It's still going to be a dead horse, in the sense that you can have all the certification. If nobody is hiring people that have those certifications, then it's just really a bunch of people with paper in their hands that can't do much with it. So it's a good thing. It's the right step in the right direction, and we believe strongly. We support it. We're really excited about it too.
It's interesting, your very first comment, that you remember the time you had in Enugu, but you were wondering what the purpose was about. Some people say it was right there in its name, the National Youth Service Corps. Do you think that as it stands, given what we have been able to see, the broad overview, because we do not have all of the details, we do not have the nitty-gritty of it yet, and how it's going to fundamentally change from what we have now to what exactly they're hoping it will be. Do you think that the underlying theme, which is service, which is supposed to be service to fatherland, that's why people were sent to schools, you served in hospitals, it was supposed to be some sort of altruistic willingly given of yourself and your knowledge through the tertiary institution that you went to. Do you think that that is somewhat defeated as we now focus on self and empowerment and, you know, the future of these young people?
No, I think this actually reaffirms that and really makes that even like more, I mean, really focuses NYSC to that. Because with, you know, when under the old agenda or the old objective, service was not, I mean, that paramilitary element to it was not really serving the country per se. I mean, there were times that people had to go to some rural areas to teach, but that in itself is not, you know, it's not nationalistic in the sense. And at the end of the day, the service could be it's questionable. Now, I think this reform really focuses all effort into national service. That is what it's supposed to be. It's not geographical or rural, you know, rural service. This is now nationalistic and it's focused on really serving the nation to move the nation's agenda forward. We see this has also been done in Germany. Germany has this where they have this dual vocational program where people, you know, similar to the NYSC, young people are sort of trained and skilled to serve the country in whatever purpose, in whatever area the country needs this service. But without people being trained and having the necessary skill, they can't serve the national agenda or the national purpose. So yes, you know, in a sense, it looks like it's more, you know, the focus changes. But we believe strongly that this focus here, this reform now focuses that effort to national, to bringing the national agenda forward and really helping the nation achieve its agenda. But under the old objective or the old arrangement, that service was questionable. So with this, you know, the focus is now, it's now more better focused on national service. We also see this in Israel, and it's worked really well in Israel. It's civilian-led. It's more focused on security. It's all about security, training young people up, helping them to develop skills in security, and then they go on to develop different innovations for the nation in improving its, you know, cybersecurity and also national security, and it's worked really well for Israel. So the service in itself is now more pronounced in this reform because the effort is now going to be what does the nation need and how do we skill our people up to be able to serve the nation in that area. I believe one of the things that's highlighted under this is really it's, you know, a 6-week orientation that focuses people on their, you know, on their area of expertise. So it's no longer this arbitrary training where you're sent to go teach somewhere without having the necessary skill to do that. And people may not even be able to function really well in that capacity. But now they're going to be trained in their own, you know, area of expertise. They're going to be upskilled in that area, and they will be able to now use those skills and those, you know, the experience and the skills that they garner to serve the country in the areas that the country truly needs help. So we believe it's more focused, it's better focused now, and, you know, it really also just, you know, I think it will better serve the country better this way.
All right, I know my colleague Ayo also has questions for you. Ayo.
Thank you, Mark. Well, you know, Mr. Agade, what he said now seems to raise its own, you know, unique challenges. When you talk about area of specialization, because it's historic that a good number of people who go to universities, to some extent, they went to university simply to get the certificate. And then when they're done, they face whatever other passion that they have. You may want to speak to that. But then there is this concern that's been on for a while. A good number of people have wondered why one of the core objectives of the NYSC, which is entrepreneurial trainings, doesn't seem to get the time of day. The hope, I believe, was that when you leave the camp and after you are done serving, you should be able to start a business by your own, a small business or whatever. Entrepreneurship was an integral part of the NYSC at the time. I don't know if you think that this new direction will help that a lot more than it ever did, such that people are not just looking for a blue collar. They actually, pick the gauntlet themselves and they try to start something. Do you see that happening?
Happening even that having a better chance under this reform than before, because under the old agenda, it was people were asked to go serve in the areas that they might not have expertise in. And most of the time, the service was all based on teaching in rural areas mostly. And at the end of the day, they were not, the NYSC core members were not skilled in any way. So they didn't have any real skill other than the theoretical knowledge that we learned in school. And that was what they had to go into the workforce with. So they didn't have any real skill to go start business, let alone have the funding to go start. This reform here focuses on them, developing them, upskilling them to come to the level that they can actually even start entrepreneurship the proper way. With better chances of success, because they're going to learn the skills of entrepreneurship. They're going to learn the rigor of entrepreneurship under this reform. It's civilian based. It's also going to expose them to the national agenda. What does the country really need? Where is the need of the country? And they're going to upskill in those areas. So there is going to be need and demand for the sort of skill that they develop during this, during their time in the orientation program. So I think it has a better chance now of succeeding than before, because there's going to be ready-made demand. Hopefully it's executed well, and hopefully the funding is released, and hopefully the certification program is set up right to have the right credibility, because now without the right credibility, all you have in your hand might be just piece of paper. So assume all that is done right, I think this has a better chance of giving light to entrepreneurship and giving people the chance to be able to express themselves in that way.
Another leg to that would be some kind of transition. Now with this new specialized streams being created, it begs the question of whether or not, I mean, you said it right now, many of these people who go into these spaces, they don't even have any skills, and they're just supposed to come in. Now, when they're in school, when they're in uni, there are a good number of people who believe that much of the curriculum that they use, they're already outdated. And then there are those who go for certain technical education, particularly in the universities, computer science and all of that. They've never seen a computer before. There are those who study certain things, engineering courses and all, and they just see the theory, they see the diagrams, and they've never really seen the equipment. Now, how do you think that can be fed, or that can fit into these new reforms that we are talking about, in a way that the university prepares them to come into the NYSC, and then they get into these streams that are being proposed, and then they can scale up? Because if they don't have the basics, what's the point?
Yeah, you're right. The education in university is foundational to real entrepreneurship or real life entrepreneurship. And without that basic foundation, entrepreneurship in itself might not have all its right legs to stand properly in future. So with that said, it starts, and I agree, the first step is, or a step to this, is to change the curriculum in schools. If you think about the curriculum in school, it's more reactive. It's learning old things, learning how, old ways of running the economy, old ways of running business, old ways of conducting business. Everything was more, based on how things were done back then. The world has changed now, and we see with the advent of AI, everything now has really been transformed. And there's nothing really proactive enough to prepare the workforce of the future. So we are preparing people for the past to catch up to the present, but never really meeting up with the future. So in order to be able to prepare people and to really have a true national agenda that moves Nigeria to a significant state and not just continue to be a country that has potential but never really realizes its full potential, then we need to make those foundational changes first. The curriculum in school needs to be overhauled completely. It can no longer be, focused on, what it used to be. It needs to be more future focused. It needs to be more relevant to the current times, and then preparing people, giving them that foundational knowledge to be able to now develop that entrepreneurship further. Then that's when it gives more meaning and more credence to the certification reform or certification program under this reform at the NYSC, because the foundation is there. You're building on top of the foundation, getting even more ready to be able to go right into entrepreneurship to succeed.
One quick question before
taught there as well.
Yeah, just one quick question before we call it today. There are some skills that will no longer be relevant in another 5-10 years from now. What are the things that you think that the reforms, these NYSC reforms, should factor in urgently? Once upon a time, personnel management was a program to study. And now it's more about leadership and allied issues. So today there are so many careers that are just coming up, and then there are the old ones, many of them are gone. So in the light of this new this initiative that the federal government is taking, what are the things that must be factored in so that it can survive another, say, 50 years if another reform doesn't happen before then?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think this is very important, and I'll say this very clearly. We've said this many times before. Without the introduction or the infusion of artificial intelligence into this program, I'm sorry, it would just be still playing catch up and still just playing around. The artificial intelligence is here and is real, and it's no longer an option. It's no longer left at the discretion of people to either learn or not learn. It's now a national agenda for many countries, and Africa still, and particularly Nigeria, still boasts itself in the potential of having the youngest population in the future. The only problem with that is if that population is not AI educated, in the future, the countries that may need this talent may no longer need that talent, because now they can have artificial intelligence robots doing all the work that humans could be doing. So without the introduction or the infusion of artificial intelligence into this program, it would still be playing catch up, and it would still be catching up to the future, to the present times, and not really focused on the future, because the future is more AI focused, and AI is infused into every aspect, into the fabric of life altogether. Every profession is going to have an aspect where AI plays a big role in it. So without artificial intelligence infused into this, it would just be, it would not be standing on all the right legs to succeed in the future.
Well, while we're still waiting for the nitty-gritty of, the details of this particular reform, to know, because what we do know is that the leadership of the NYSC will now change as we know it. We will no longer have a military leader. That's what we've been told. It's not clear if the military component, because Madam Hadiza Bala Usman only spoke about safety still being under the purview of the military. But it's unclear if the 3-week paramilitary training in camp is still going to be a part of it, or whether it will be expunged. And for a number of people, they had thought before now that will be a way to introduce, at least for young people, to experience what it is that some of the service corps, I mean, the police, the NDLEA, yes, the NSCDC, and of course the military, what they usually have to go through, at least just a sampling of it before they even go into other things that involve service. Do you think that part of the service, if at all, is going to be tinkered with? Do you think it should be expunged?
I think it should still be kept. I mean, if you look at the Israeli program, in Israel, this paramilitary program that they have, there's a military component of it where there's physical fitness, physical activity done to continue to develop, that physical fitness in people and to give them that, the physical fitness component is always there to keep people, because at the national level, you're serving the country. You have to have the health and the fitness to be able to serve in the capacity that you might be serving to. Some professions may need physical exertion to be able to even perform them. So that physical component should be there, but it should not be the main component of it. It should be a subset of it. It should be, if I were to put that on a scale, maybe 10 to 20% of it, where that physical aspect is there. You're serving the country, your paramilitary program. It's similar to the national, to the military reserve here in the U.S., where, in the reserve, you might serve every 2 weeks, you might go for some type of boot camp to just keep that physical fitness. But the main profession is about serving the country and developing skills that are needed to serve the country. So that component needs to be the significant component in the entire reform. But the physical fitness, I think, should still be there to develop that physical strength to be able to serve in areas that might need that physical exertion, for those professions that might need that physical exertion. So I think that aspect still needs to be kept, but it should not be the main focus. It should be kept very, minor in the entire grand scheme of things.
Well, Mr. Shola Adekonye, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning on Sunrise Daily. He's the co-founder of Open Innovation Access and GPOIA Green Ventures. Thank you once more for speaking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we'll take a break now. We'll come back. We'll take another perspective, especially on this matter happening in South Africa, keeping tabs on developments there, as well as local politics back home. The NDC registration is still hanging in a balance, with matters being unclear as to whether or not INEC will be handing access codes to all of the political parties, including the NDC. In just a moment, please stay with us.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We promised we would have conversations around June 30's expiration date, or should I say a deadline declared by some South Africans who are protesting illegal migration in their country. Ehi Brahma joins us this morning. He is a forthright editor. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. What are your thoughts on this? One of the concerns a good number of people have is that, hey, this is not happening for the first time. It's not hitting us like it's a tsunami. It's not something that is new. It's been on and off. It seems like some kind of seasonal episode that we have. What are your thoughts on this? What is it that we are missing? Can you hear me, Mr. Brahma? Mr. Brahma, can you hear me? Okay. Well, I am not sure that he can hear us now.
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So the question I'm asking, I mean, this whole xenophobia thing going on in South Africa, it seems like some kind of seasonal occurrence, something that happens from time to time, goes and then comes again, goes and then comes again, some furore here and there, particularly against Nigerians. And then here we are again. What is it that you think we are missing?
Thank you, Ayo. What is going on in South Africa is largely political. It has nothing to do with crime. It has nothing to do with status of immigrants, honestly. But it is shameful knowing the role that Nigeria played, during the apartheid regime, to get South Africa to become a free country, as it were. But having said that, what is going on currently has been framed largely as immigrants taking their jobs, immigrants putting pressure on their public services. That is not true. The government has failed, and they don't want to take responsibility. Politicians, they will do anything. Local elections are coming up in November in South Africa. And the march in March, which is now March on March, started in March. And I can tell you for free that politicians are largely behind this process. They just have to look for a reason, to gain votes. And now they have people they are using. And how is this happening? South Africa, they are 64 million people. And immigrants are not up to, they're not more than 3.1 or 3.2 million people, about 4.5% of the population of South Africa. So what exactly is the problem? And the fear is that I think today is the last day, June 30, for immigrants. And the irony, Ayo, is that this does not extend to white immigrants. And that is very unfortunate. Knowing the history of South Africa, it is so shameful. And then the government of South Africa have been so quiet and slow about this whole thing. Because how do they address inequality, unemployment, crime rate in South Africa? Why are South African people so lazy? Nigerians who go to South Africa, most of them create their own businesses. Now, there's what they call spaza shops, those small retailer outlets, largely dominated by Pakistanis and Somalians. They are the people taking food to the neighborhoods, so the communities. South Africans are just sitting there and idle. What about Nigerians married to South Africans? What happens to their children? And you said people who are married, to South Africa, whether men or women should leave. What happens to their kids? Now the government of Nigeria now has to look for a way now to give them, a Nigerian ID, so that if they have to come to Nigeria, they come. But having said that, our government must speak out forcefully now at this time against this xenophobic nonsense that is going on in South Africa. I think we have also been too quiet about this matter, and evacuation too has been slow. But as a country, we need to take a very definite position against South Africa. If South African government stepped in immediately and arrested and prosecuted, the March people, now March on March, or the Dadula movement, prosecuted them for human rights violation, nipped it in the bud at the very start, we won't be where we are today. Now the thing is not even an organic movement per se, and it does not reflect the views of the larger, South African society. So I think the government has failed the South Africa. There's rising unemployment about 33 to 40%. And so that's where the problem is coming from. The immigrants are not the problems of South Africa, because when they leave now, I'm told that the shops are empty, taxis and buses are empty. So when they go, how would that solve the unemployment problem in South Africa?
Well, the questions are there definitely for the South Africans to answer. The challenge is how we as a people, as a nation, are also taking this up. Now, as I said, this is not the first time this is happening. Abike Dabirere had been very, very forceful and forthright about this for a very long time. And now another woman, the Minister of Finance, is also taking the lead on this matter and insisting that proper things to be done. In fact, she has begun to talk tough. Question, where do we go from here? When you say that the Nigerian government must do something or speak forcefully, what are your expectations? So that, because if South Africa does it and gets away with it, who knows whatever other country in the world is going to do again. So in terms of setting a standard and creating a definite diplomatic deterrence, what are the things that you expect would do the magic, so to speak?
Well, as always, we explore all the diplomatic channels, government-to-government relations. I mean, we have, officials at the Nigerian High Commission in South Africa. I think I watched one of them this morning, speaking on the issues and how they are trying to deal with them. First of all, explore all diplomatic avenues to see how we can resolve this matter. Because it's not the first time. And I don't know why they target largely Nigerians, and some other, Africans, I think from Zimbabwe as well, and a few other countries. So if we explore that one, that is one. Two, if that fails, and even if diplomatic relations have to break down, at some point it has to happen. When South Africa decided to take Israel, for example, to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, heavens did not fall. even though there have been some pushback from some, other countries, I believe that setting this standard and sending a very strong warning to South Africa that, Nigerians cannot be treated the way, this xenophobic rubbish that is going on in South Africa. So the engagement should continue. And if that fails, then we may have to use other means. And I believe that maybe that will work. Much as a lot of people do not support Senator Adams or Shomole's position, that we should nationalize the assets of South African businesses in Nigeria. But I guess sometimes you want to, issue such threats and let them know some of these things are possible. Because every Nigerian life matters anywhere in the world, not only in South Africa. And I think that should be the position of the government. I know the Minister, Foreign Affairs, Bianca Odumegwu was saying some things along those lines, but we haven't had anything again since then. So let us be very clear what we want to do. And if diplomatic efforts fail, then we apply economic pressure.
We look forward to, to what exactly will be done, because you were saying that that's something that Nigeria was considering. We're still looking to hear the details of the steps that the Nigerian government will be taking in that regard, even as they continue to impress it upon them that Nigerians in their country at this moment need to be kept safe. And I imagine other African leaders will be doing same to the South African government. That clearly is one pressure that they have to deal with. But back home, we also have our own pressures as well. Politics is also in full swing here. It's not on the streets yet. But we're seeing the deregistration, the potential deregistration of a major political party platform, the NDC, and the dust, the furore that is already beginning to raise. Quite a number of lawyers have waded on it, waded in on the matter, and they are saying that they're wondering about the jurisdiction of this particular court to be able to revisit a matter that it had already settled before now. A number of people wonder, where does that leave the NDC and its presidential candidates? In fact, not just its presidential candidates, even all of the other aspirants on its platform. They have said they're going to the Court of Appeal. How quickly do you think that this will be resolved for them to participate in the forthcoming elections?
You see, Mark, the more you look, the less you see with our politics. So much has been going on with the opposition parties especially. And this way the stories have been framed in the past that, it's APC, it's President Tinubu, who doesn't want political parties to breathe. But I think to a large extent, the opposition parties have not also helped themselves. They have not organized themselves very well. Knowing what happened in 2003, I'm really surprised that they cannot even come together. That is on the one part. Now, if you look at them individually, whether it's ADC or now NDC, there's one story after another. First, NDC got their court judgment. A court ordered registration with INEC. I think that judgment was sometime in December last year. And now, so it's basically a new party. But what a lot of people are asking, and why it is curious, is that we joined NDC on the 3rd of May, and then 2 days later, this so-called peace party went to court 2 days later. And now the same court in Lokoja that originally gave a ruling that NDC should be registered with INEC, now reversing itself. So I'm not a lawyer per se, but from the developments in the political space, I don't think this is healthy. All the parties should be allowed to run and let Nigerians decide whether we have 2 parties or 3 parties or 4 parties. Let Nigerians just come out, on that day, sometime in January, to vote. Using the courts, and that's another conversation, how the judiciary, the role of the judiciary in our politics, in our democracy. And I think the democracy, the public image of the judiciary is very, very unhelpful. People are beginning not to trust the judiciary because of the kind of rulings that are coming out from different courts. The other day, it was one court saying that some parties should be deregistered. And of course, INEC went to court. And I think that was really a good move. And that move the ruling by Justice Lifu was halted. And so much has been said about Justice Lifu. I mean, that's not part of what we're here to discuss today. Let the judiciary support our democracy. The way we are going right now, they are not. And we really have to make that point very clear. And for NDC, their presidential candidate, Peter Obi, and VP candidate, RBK, Rabi Musa Ponkonso, I think they should just go to court. That's the right thing to do. The party should go to court. I think they have said they'll go to court. I watched the leader of the party here, countryman Sirake Disin, was shown, I think, 2 or 3 days ago. They will go to court, let them go and fight that appeal. But overall, what is going on with the opposition parties from the standpoint of how the courts are being used, so to speak, it's not going to help our democracy. Why don't we want more people on the ballot? Why is the judiciary being used to frustrate opposition parties? Why is our democracy being threatened by the judiciary? I think those are questions, the Nigeria Judicial Council, National Judicial Council should also look at. We have lawyers that have also abused court processes, and I think in some cases they have been fined heavily, and I think that process should continue.
Yeah, you just talked about the judiciary as an entirety. It's interesting that the antidote to the judiciary is also the judiciary, because when this matter of Justice Lifu came up, it was the Court of Appeal that set that particular matter straight with very strong words for Justice Lifu. It didn't even get to the National Judicial Council. So in some ways, it does appear that the antidote lies within the system itself. Do you think it would be fair for us to keep making reference to the judiciary in that sense, when we do know that the corrective mechanism also lies within the same system, and in many instances they've shown that they're capable of correcting themselves? Oh dear, it appears Mr. Brima is frozen. I don't know if you heard me, Mr. Brima. We're trying to see if we can. Did you hear my question?
I can hear you now. For a moment, it was frozen. Yes.
It was frozen, okay. I was asking, well, we're totally out of time, as a matter of fact. But I was asking if you can manage this in 30 seconds. Do you think that it would be fair to, refer to the judiciary with one sweeping brush that they are the problems, when we do know that so far they have also proven that they're capable of correcting themselves?
Well, to a large extent, Nigerians don't trust the judiciary anymore. So they need to redeem their image.
Oh.
That is my position, and because there have been too many examples, we can cite many here, and how some of them allegedly are being compromised. We can be, if you read Professor DiCarlo from time to time, yeah. I mean, he is a very distinguished lawyer. Mm-hmm.
And of course, he's also commented.
You understand, get some more insights into how the judiciary works in Nigeria these days.
Indeed, he's commented on this matter as well. He's commented on this matter, and he has raised very strong objections to how the Federal High Court judge reached this particular decision. Ordering the deregistration of the.
Marco, if we want to build a great country, there must be ethical leadership. We must promote ethical leadership, good governance. And I will do an article on that very soon. And how Rotary can support that through the four-way test and Rotary's values.
We will see. We certainly will look forward to that article and hope that the people who need to read it are also reading that particular article.
They will read. It depends on whether they will act. They will read.
Okay. We have to thank you very much for your contributions, as always, to the program. Mr. Ehi Brima is the publisher, editor-in-chief of Niger Times. Thank you once more.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thanks, Marco, and thank you, Ayo. Bye-bye.
All right, we're still keeping tabs here on Channels Television on developments in South Africa, and we will certainly bring you up to speed with our correspondent, and here, his name is Innocent Samosa. We will certainly be keeping tabs with him on developments in SA as they come up with, that police have been deployed heavily, particularly in Durban, and the South African government is trying to reassure migrants, immigrants especially, that they will be looking after their safety, and that they hope that this protest today will be violence-free. But stay tuned here on Channels Television. Thank you so much for watching the program today. I'm Maupe Ogunyiso.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. In a minute or two, it will be time for business news. Have a good day.